I'm wearing my shirt. Goldman sucks. Cool. Okay. I like to read books about silver, and I like to read free books about silver even better. I've got a link for you, a book about silver, and this book was written it's called Silver Money. It was written in 1939. It's got bimetallism, the history of silver and coinage, the Silver Act, Silver New Deal, 340, more than 300 pages, right? Pretty good book. And actually it was Don Harold who pointed this book out to me. I know there are some people on YouTube who are popular, some are unpopular, there's feuds and whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if someone gets me a really good link, I think that's cool. So, I got this book here. I suggest you read it if you want to understand about the history of silver and money and so forth. Because when I first started on my monetary theory journey, the first stuff I came across was kind of like the bullion dealer version of monetary history. And of course, the bullion dealer's version is keep on stacking no matter what. And yes, it is great to have stacks of the precious metals, right? The bigger your stack, the better. I mean, basically, right? Would you rather have a big stack or a small stack? I'd rather have a big stack, right? Of course, I mean, I'd rather pay a lower price. And of course, you know, if the price goes high, I need other stuff, then maybe trade in your precious metals for other stuff. But the fact of the matter is there are different ways you can view history. So this book called Silver Money is really good. One thing in the book it says was that there's a period of time in the 1800s where the British Empire, only 15% of the world's silver came from the British Empire. You know, the sun never sets on the British Empire. The world power at the time, imagine, the world power only mines like 15% of the world's silver. And then you have two countries, America and Mexico, where like half of all the world's silver comes from these two piddly little countries from their perspective. They're the big empire. They only got 15% of the world's silver supply. So what are they going to do? They're going to demonetize silver, right? I mean, they're this big empire. They only got 15% of the supply. They got these two podunk countries that got half the world's supply. What are they going to do? They're going to demonetize it. And who's going to go along with it? The British citizens, the British industrialists, the British bankers, everybody in the whole British Empire is like, yeah, you know, if they're pulling this money out of the ground in the Americas for free, and they're kind of causing inflation in our silver, you know, maybe we'll just not use silver as money before. And that was their perspective on the matter. I know you hear a lot about silver for the people, you know, silver for the people. Well, the question is, which people? Now, in Mexico and America, silver for the people was a big deal because you have these countries and they're pulling up silver money out of the ground, and it's great. They got prosperity. They got the printing press, so to speak, the printing mine. Where those British citizens, the British Empire, is like, hey, they're pulling this free silver out of the ground, and we're not. We're going to go ahead and just not accept that silver anymore. That's kind of a little bit of the summary of a kind of bigger thing, because it wasn't as simple as that. Now, when it comes to gold as money, so I'm reading about in here it says how when the Spanish and others, they plundered, right, the Aztecs' gold, the Indian, you know, all those empires in South America, Central America, right? The Europeans came and took all that gold. So did they destroy the money supply of Central and South America? Well, in the Aztec economy, what they used for money was like cocoa beans, and they had kind of like more of a barter system. So what happened was you'd have like the wealthy and the priests, they'd hoard all this gold and make, you know, like idols and statues and really cool stuff, and they valued gold. Gold had value to them. They liked gold. But they didn't have a gold standard, and in fact the people didn't use the gold as money. They used like cocoa beans as money. So These are things when people, when you hear bullion dealers say, oh, gold and silver are the only money for 5,000 years. Well, they had value for 5,000 years. And they were money for many parts of 5,000 years. They were a store of wealth for a long period of time. But here we have Central and South America. They got gold, right? They're making cool stuff with it and they're valuing in gold. But they're not using it as money, and they had no gold standard. And this is verifiable history you can look up. I'm looking this up here. Right here, we got this article talking about what they used as money. I'm sure some of the wealthy might use gold as money, but the people in the Aztec Empire use like cocoa beans and stuff, and they even use barter and stuff. So I just want to say is that we're hearing a lot of bearish things. Guys like Jim Rogers are saying that, you know, gold could go a bunch lower, you know. Nouriel Roubini is talking about stuff, and, you know, so we have some people here are talking down the gold, and perhaps that's, you know, that might be a sigh of relief, you know, because there's less pumping going on. But, you know, Jim Rogers, when he said, you know, silver was being overheated and these things end badly at parabolic moves when silver was in the high 40s, and he was right. Maybe will gold drop a few $100? I can't make a call on that, but this is what I can say. If someone has a lot of gold, they can short their own stack to hedge it, right? If someone has a lot of gold and they're thinking the price might go down, they can short their own stack. Now, if they're wrong and the price of gold goes up, well, they spend a little bit of money, but their stack goes up and their options are useless, fine. But the price goes down, the value of their options makes up for the price of gold going down. And I think that's one thing when people say control your risk, they're talking about that. But I do realize a lot of people who are stacking silver are not involved with those kinds of derivatives. Part of it too is how big is your stack, right? If you've got a few $1,000s worth of silver, maybe it's not worth it to go through all those hoops. I'm thinking the people who have like bigger stacks and bigger asset allocations, and a lot of that have already done that. I've talked with people who've shorted their own stack over the years. So people on YouTube even talked about that. It was very unpopular, but people are going to do what they perceive is best for them. And if you're lucky, they'll tell you what they did, so you can say, hey, what did that person do? So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something.